Oh, Randy's death was particularly tragic, I felt, because he was, in my view, probably the greatest new rock guitarist to emerge at that time. He could have been, if he'd lived, if he hadn't died, he would have been up there with the gods, because he was such a brilliantly creative player. The tragedy of it was, of course, in Blizzard of Oz, Randy was, to me, compared to Ozzy was the one. It was Ozzy's band, and Ozzy was a huge personality. And Randy was this very quiet, modest guy from California, quite frail as well, and you didn't really think much of him. And when I saw him the first time play in New York, absolutely blew me away, because he was just this demon, a fantastic guitarist. Didn't really party as much as Ozzy, certainly not to that degree. He wasn't even he had a fear of flying, so I was amazed he even went up in a plane. But Blizzard of Oz made a huge impact in America, and in the second year, I'd just been out with them on the second tour, US tour. I'd left them behind, I'd done the interview with Randy. Days later, Randy was somehow, for some reason, up in a little private aircraft, and they were buzzing the tour bus. The tour bus had Ozzy, Sharon, and Rudy, the bassist, in the bus. I think there are different reasons why it happens. There were suggestions that the pilot was high on Charlie, or whatever reason it was. They buzzed that plane 4 times. So they buzzed the coach 4 times, and on the 4th buzzing, the 4th time they came into it, that's when they clipped the wing, and it killed them. And it's hard to even now to get your head around what a great loss that was. Ozzy was devastated. Sharon was devastated, because she was a lot closer to Randy than Ozzy knew. But just in terms of business terms, just in terms of rock terms, it was a tremendous loss, because this was a guy at the peak of his powers. I think he was a guitar teacher. And I think he said to me that it was actually in the teaching of the guitar that he'd come to realise how much he was putting into it. He actually started putting more into it because he was teaching it, and he was a classically trained guitarist, I can remember now sitting in his hotel room, and he just picked up an acoustic guitar and started playing this amazing stuff for me, and yet he also was a very versatile guitarist. He was a very versatile guitarist. He could be fluent if you wanted him to be fluent. He could be frenetic if you wanted him to be frenetic. Inventive. He wasn't just a repetitive clone of other people. He was actually thinking things out for himself. He was developing that guitar sound, and I think you can hear that certainly on Crazy Train, but you can you know that had he gone on, and he spoke to me at length about wanting to do a solo album the following year, had he gone on, he would have created some really beautiful music. I saw Iron Maiden early on, and although we weren't supposed to like heavy metal, that was part of the thing about being a punk. To me, they had a lot of punk energy. There's a lot of things about Iron Maiden that I related to. Firstly, of course, they were from the East End, and they had a lot of a big following. They had a very rowdy, fast style of music. They wrote great songs, very catchy, and it was hard not to like them. In fact, they weren't like the old plodding dinosaurs. They were, in some ways, reinventing the form, but they were doing it parallel to punk. They weren't post-punk, as some people said. In fact, they started before punk, and it was just a coincidence that it all happened at the same time. If you met Davey Murray and Adrian Smith, normally you think, oh, what nice guys they are, very quiet guys. But in drink on these tours, they became monstrous people. Davey Murray became a character called Nobby Tart, which I think is self-explanatory, whereas Adrian became Melvin, and they just turned into these creatures of the night who were party animals. I remember being out in Florida with them, and I was sitting there having a drink, and everything was lovely, and I heard this banging noise, a persistent thumping, bang, 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 and someone shouting. I thought, oh, I'm a journalist, I'll go and have a look at this. And it was the tour manager, Warren, trying to break into Davey's room, because everyone was getting ready to go. We broke into the room together, and there we found the body of Davey Murray, looking so comatose, and still we thought the worst, but no, he was fine, and he was just out for the count completely. So Warren has then picked him up, draped only in a blanket, only in a bed sheet. So he looks like the fallen body of Christ, to be honest. And this metal messiah, they're then taken through the hotel, everyone's amazed and gasping. And yet 3 hours later, when we pull up at a handy roadside lap dancing club for a little bit of a drink at lunchtime, he is then fully awake. So, I won over the 8 last night, was all he said. And within an hour of us being there, he'd left and he'd taken one of the dancers with him. So this is the incredible indestructible power of his liver. Yeah. And yet you meet him now and you think, what a quiet man, what a nice gentleman he is. Yeah, I started at Sounds in 78, the summer of 78, a time when Enemy said that punk was dead. And yet I'm going out every night and seeing great new bands. Every week you see something fantastic. The Members, the Ruts, the Skids. It was a great time to be young and alive, and it was just a fantastic time to be writing about music.